everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. And today we got a top 15. This one's interesting. This is top 15 youngest serial killers of all time. This is 7 years ago, so who knows? There might be some new ones that probably could have been added here. But we're going to go look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment what you think down below. Let's go.
Number 15.
Also remember, this is serial killers. This is people who have killed multiple people.
Peter Kinowski. He worked as a railroad section hand and as a miner. Kinowski killed one adult and 2 children. However, he approached many other children who made escapes. Kinowski was a suspect in the disappearance of Billy Gaffney, who vanished in 1927. Albert Fish would later claim to have murdered Gaffney. Both serial killers worked in the same time frame and in the same geographic area and were killers of children. He was also a suspect in the murder of Ivering Pinkshley, who disappeared from Brooklyn in February 1927. Kinowski was captured in Detroit, Michigan, confessed, and was brought to Jersey City for trial. He was found guilty of first-degree murder on November 17, 1928 at the age of 25. That sets his killings at the age of only 21. He was executed by
Alright, 21 years old, so he would have been probably a year younger than me when he started taking lives. Like, that's insane. That's not I feel like that's just tame compared to the ages we're about to hear on this damn video.
Electric chair on December 21st, 1929 in Trenton, New Jersey. Number 14. Gordon Stewart Northcot.
Oh, you look like a serial killer. Come on. You look like a killer. I don't know if it's an actual photo, but if it is, this guy looks like a serial killer. Come on.
A homosexual sadist, by age 21, Northcot was living on a poultry ranch near Riverside, California. Northcot became known as the Boy Butcher. He was a suspect in the Wineville chicken coop massacres and was found responsible for the kidnappings of an undetermined number of boys. When he was tired of boys, they were shot or branded with an axe, their flesh dissolved with quicklime, and their bones transported to the desert for disposal. Only one was ever found, a headless teenage Mexican, discovered near La Pointe during February 1928, but homicide detectives identified 3 other victims. His mother aided him in the murder of Walter Collings, one of Northcot's victims. His mother knew of his sexual deviancy and suggested killing the boy because he knew too much. Convicted on 3 counts of murder.
What? So his mother, Gordon's mother, knew of what he was doing and suggested to kill the boy because he knew too much. That mother's fucked up. That mother is fucked up. Because usually the parents in our serial killers aren't as evil as they are most times. This is the first time I've ever heard where a mother encourages the killings of a serial killer. Insanity.
Murder, including the 2 brothers and the anonymous Mexican. Northcot was sentenced to death. His mother received an only life sentence in the Collins case. While serving time at San Quentin, Northcot alternated between protests of innocence and detailed confessions to the murder of about 20 victims. A pathological liar who cherished the spotlight, he several times offered to
Yep, a pathological liar. Oh, man.
point out remains of more victims. Warden Duffy recalled his conversations with Northcot as a lurid amount of mass murder, sodomy, oral copulation, and torture so vivid it made my flesh creep. Northcot was hung on October 2nd, 1930, finally staring into the eyes of the same death he'd brought to so many young boys. Number 13. Norman Offizol Simmons.
I have a thought. It's just a thought I have sometimes. Serial killer. So this ends the death. Should they? I feel. Right? This is just a me thing. Right? This is just. I understand that I'm a sick bastard for thinking this way. Okay, I understand this. I understand this. But in my mind, if a serial killer is sentenced to death, they should be killed the way they killed their victims. Exact same way. No matter what it was. They should be killed that way. I know that sounds fucked up. Because in fact, there were some brutal ones in there. But that's just how my brain works. They should die the same way those victims had to suffer. They should suffer the way those victims had to suffer. Just my thought. No one else has that opinion. Just me, I know. But I just want to say it out loud.
Also known as the Station Strangler, Norman Simmons is a South African rapist and serial killer. Simmons is believed to have started his sporadic series of murders in September 1986. At the ripe age of 19, Simmons raped and sodomized his victims before strangling them. Victims were found face down with their hands tied behind their backs in shallow sandy graves. The victims' underwear were occasionally found around their necks, presumably used in the strangulation. Handwritten notes were also found next to some victims. Simmons' relationship with his older stepbrother seemed to have a major bearing in his criminal activities. Simmons alleged that his older stepbrother raped and sodomized him when he was younger. He also reports hearing voices from his brother instructing him to kill, despite his brother having been murdered in 1991. Simmons appeared before a court in 1995 on one charge of murder and kidnapping. His trial lasted 3 months, leading to a conviction and a life sentence. In 2005, an inquest was opened into the deaths of the remaining victims. After 3 years of further analysis, the victims' parents came no closer to an answer. Norman Simmons converted to Islam in 1993, taking on the name Afizal, but converted back to Christianity in 1994. Number 12. Harvey Robinson. When Harvey was just 17, he committed his first murder, which was followed by
17 when he committed his first murder. 17!
2 others in or near Allentown, Pennsylvania. Police suspect his involvement in several other attacks, possibly totaling 6 victims. The 3 confirmed victims were Joan Burghardt, a 29-year-old nurse's aide, Charlotte Chamoyer, a 15-year-old newspaper carrier, and Jessica Jean Fortney, a 47-year-old grandmother. He raped and brutalized a 4th victim, Denise Samcali, but she escaped. Robinson returned to her home several nights later and attempted to break in. A police officer was posted at the home, and when Robinson attempted to break in again, the officer called out for him to halt. Robinson and the police officer exchanged gunfire, and Robinson was injured by the glass of a window he smashed through, escaping the scene. He was then tracked to a local hospital and was arrested. Robinson also had a 5th victim, who was only 5 years old when Robinson broke into her house. He intended to rape and possibly
They played to a 5th victim who was only 5 years old. Tell me I didn't just hear that. I'm gonna play that guy. Please tell me this. He didn't just say that.
Who was only 5 years old when
Harvey Robinson, go burn in hell. Go burn in hell. 5-year-old? A 5-year-old. You went 49. 20-something. 15 years old. A 5-year-old. You sick bastard. You are a fucked up human being.
Robinson broke into her house. He intended to rape and possibly kill the child's mother, but changed his mind when he saw her in bed with a boyfriend. Instead, Harvey crept into her room. There he raped the 5-year-old, choked her, and left her for dead. It's believed that Harvey had stalked the mother.
Oh, this man was sentenced to life in prison. I want to know he's dead. I want him to be killed so badly. He went in there to kill the victim's mother, originally. The mother was there with a boyfriend in bed. So he instead just went after the fucking child. Fuck this dude so much.
mother for several days beforehand, as he did his other victims. Harvey was suspected of attempting to kill yet another girl, Leslie Gerhardt. She was 13 and had a friend staying over for the evening when Robinson removed the screen from the bedroom window and began beating her with a brick. He was scared off when the friend began screaming. Leslie escaped with a fractured skull and a shattered hand. The two attended elementary school together, and Leslie is believed to have been Harvey's first victim, although Harvey has never been charged with the attempted murder. Robinson was sentenced to death for his crimes. He was later resentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Joan Burghart because he was only 17 when the crime was committed. Since his incarceration, Robinson has converted to Islam. Number 11.
I don't care what he's converted to. I want him killed. I want him. Why would you? I don't care that he was 17 years old. Someone who does that to the people he does deserves absolutely to be sentenced to death. I do not care what age you are. A 17-year-old who rapes a 17-year-old knows fucking better. Age does not get. A 17-year-old knows not to do that to a fucking 5-year-old. A 17-year-old knows not to attack someone and hit them with a fucking brick. Should have been sentenced to death. Should have been kept and should have been put on death's fucking door.
11. Peter Woodcock. David Michael Kruger, better known by his birth name Peter Woodcock, was a Canadian serial killer and child rapist. He gained notoriety for the brutal murders of 3 young children in Toronto, Canada, when he himself was still only a teenager, in 1956 and 1957. After reaching puberty, Woodcock began to travel around Toronto on his bike, sexually assaulting children in Parkdale and Cabbagetown. This behavior would ultimately lead to the murder of 7-year-old Wayne Mellette, 9-year-old Gary Morris, and 4-year-old girl Carol Voice. Woodcock was apprehended for the murders in 1957, found not guilty by reason of insanity, and placed in Oak Ridge, an Ontario psychiatric facility, which is where he legally changed his name. In 1991, following the completion of a treatment program for himself and others, Woodcock was deemed greatly improved and sent to a medium security hospital in Brockville, Ontario. There, Woodcock claimed he fell in love with fellow psychiatric patient Dennis Kerr, who rejected his sexual advances, which drove Woodcock to stabbing Kerr to death. Woodcock would later explain that the treatment program served to only make him more adept at manipulating others, which is enough to make us all question the killers that have been released after being reported as healthy. Having spent 53 years in custody, the majority of that time at Oak Ridge, Woodcock died there on March 5th, 2010, his 71st birthday.
At least this guy's dead. So this guy fell in love with another prisoner, another male prisoner. And, but the male prisoner, because I didn't hear the guy's name. The male prisoner rejected his advances, which just drove Peter here to fucking stab him. Holy shit.
Number 10. Aaron Cathy. After a
So we have 4 people here, but she's the youngest. Is she the mastermind?
dispute with his parents over her relationship with an older boy, 16-year-old Erin Michelle Cathy slaughtered her entire family and burned the house to the ground.
Oh, no, she did. Oh, no, she clearly knows what she's doing. She clearly planned it all. She slaughtered her entire fucking family and burned the house to the ground. Holy fuck.
On March 1st, 2008, in a pre-dawn attack, Erin worked with her 19-year-old boyfriend Charlie Wilkinson and his 2 friends, Charles Allen Wade, 20, and 18-year-old Bobby Gale Johnson. The group...
I'm just cute. Okay, I have to know this. I will never get an answer to this. But what exactly does someone say to you to make you commit this, to make you get involved in this? Do they lie to you? Do they tell you about this, like, this is what I've seen before. Do they tell you the fucking sob story? In order to convince you that you're doing a favor? Do they just straight tell people like these two? Wade and Johnson, they're like, hey, we're gonna take their lives and burn the building down. They're just like, fucking howdy ho, you want in? Like, what the happens? just always curious as me on what the fuck they say to make you do it.
Shot everyone in the house, including Aaron's two younger brothers, aged 13 and 8, then proceeded to set the house ablaze in an attempt to hide the evidence. However, their shots were not as successful as they hoped, and Aaron's father, Cathy, managed to survive and crawl to safety. However, her mother and two brothers died in the attack. Aaron was arrested the same day, and when she stood trial, she agreed to a plea deal that could make her eligible for parole when she's 59. Wilkinson and Wade also avoided the death penalty in November by pleading guilty for their involvement in the killings. McDowell, their lawyer, said both would have likely received life sentences with parole. Johnson, named as the accomplice who did not use a weapon, was sentenced to 40 years in prison and may be eligible for parole in 20 years. It's sad to think so much tragedy would come from a simple teenage relationship. Number 9.
This is how it goes when a young person, a young one, is with an older man or old enough where parents say, yeah, it's either that, it's say, yeah, you don't mix, or it's just they don't mix well. Like, they clearly can tell the guy's a bad influence. They told her stop doing it, stop dating him. He's a bad influence, he's a bad person, you need to get away from him. And for some reason, love is fucking blind. I don't understand it. I've never been able to understand how being in love can cause someone to go that fucking far. Maybe I'm just not in the right. I just don't know the right type of love. But holy I could not imagine being in love with someone so much that was my solution. I gotta stay with the person, and I'm gonna kill everyone in my family and burn the house down in order to stay with this person. I can't love. There was no love that exists that much, because I guarantee you that relationship wouldn't have even lasted in the fucking first place.
Cayetano Santos Gaudiano. Santos was an Argentinian serial killer who terrorized Buenos Aires at the age of 16. In the early 20th century.
16? Holy shit, I'm just gonna say, this man has the biggest fucking ears I've ever seen. Holy shit, he looks like an elf. But that's probably why, it's probably shit like this that got him killed. Got me killed, is them bullying this poor man. But fuck. 16? God damn.
He was responsible for the murders of 4 children, the attempted murder of another 7 children, and the arson of 7 buildings. In January 1912, a 13-year-old boy was found dead in an abandoned house, and a young girl was set on fire and died shortly after. In November 1912, Gaudiano tried to choke 8-year-old Robert Russo. He was arrested and charged with attempted murder, but was released until the trial. While awaiting trial, he attempted 2 more murders and a kidnapping. On December 3rd, 1912...
So clearly, even in 1912 and 19 whatever, clearly they weren't watching the kill, because the fact this guy was able to attempt 2 more murders and attempt to kidnap someone, and no one was paying attention is all I need to fucking see.
Gaudiano saw an 18-month-old baby playing outside his house and lured him away to a barn-like building. When they were inside, he threw him to the floor and unsuccessfully tried to choke him with his belt. Then he cut his belt and tied his hands and legs. He then started beating him and then hammered a nail into the side of the toddler's skull and hid his corpse. The body was found by the father minutes later. At 8 p.m., Gaudiano went to the wake and touched the skull where he had fixed the nail. At 5:30 a.m. the next day, Gaudiano was arrested by police and confessed to all his crimes. He was sentenced to a reformatory but was later moved to prison. Throughout 1933, he spent some time in the hospital for a beating he suffered from inmates after he tried to kill 2 of their pet cats. He was found dead in his cell in November 1944. The official cause was reported as internal bleeding caused by a gastrus outbreak. When the prison was closed down and they were digging up the graves of dead inmates, they found Gaudiano's bones to be missing. Number 8, Craig.
So this guy, this fucking Santos there, who's his last name, right? Santos? Yeah, so Santos tried to kill 2 prisoners' pet cats and got his fucking ass kicked for it. Got his fucking ass beat. Sent to the hospital. And now they're, I guess, unless I'm thinking so, I guess he got internal injuries caused from a gastrous leak or something like that. I don't really think. I just know that this man clearly was picking fights in a hospital or in the prison and could have died because of them.
Price, 39-year-old Joan Heaton, and her two daughters, 10-year-old Jennifer and 8-year-old Melissa, were found blood-soaked and brutally murdered in their home on September 4th, 1989. They were found murdered so brutally that the knife broke off into Melissa's neck. Police reported that Joan had approximately 60 stab wounds, while the young girls had approximately 30. The authorities believed that burglary was the
Holy shit! 60 stab wounds for one and 30 for another. And the preacher of what has 30 is a young child. How much rage, Mr. Craig Price, did you have to unleash this on them? How much anger did you have?
suspect's main motive because the knife used was from Heaton's kitchen and there was a clear break-in and struggle. It was also believed that the burglar must have been someone from the Heaton's neighborhood who would have obtained a cut or a wound in the hand due to the force and number of times the victims were stabbed. Craig was spotted by the police with a bandage on his hand, but said he had smashed a car window. However, the police did not believe his story and investigated him. They found the knife, gloves, and other bloody items when they searched Craig's room. He admitted to the crime and another murder that had taken place in the neighborhood 2 years earlier. The authorities already suspected him as the murderer in that case, which was similar to Heaton's and had also started out as a burglary. Craig was tried and convicted before his 16th birthday and is still in jail. The only
Before his 16th birthday, so he was like 15, 14 years old when this was done, which, holy sh... This man had violence. This man had anger in him. Very unnecessary anger directed that he had. Holy crap.
The only real motive Craig ever gave was jealousy of what these families had that he did not. He just wanted to rob them, but became angry when they fought back. He also stated that he fully intended on letting the girls live. Number 7. Harold Jones. In 1921, when he was only 15, Harold Jones was tried for the murder of an 8-year-old girl, Frida Burnell. However, he was acquitted and he returned to Aberteury, Wales. A few weeks after his return, he murdered 11-year-old Florence Little. This time he pleaded guilty to the
15 years old, taking a life without any remorse at all.
Murder charge, possibly to avoid being tried after he had turned 16, when he would have been liable for the death penalty. He also admitted that he committed the earlier murder and was sentenced to be detained. He was released from prison in 1941. Not much is known about his movements after that, but he died in 1971. His case caused a sensation at the time, but is not widely known now. However, it attracted some attention around 2010, as it was suggested by writer Neil Milkins that following his release he became the serial killer Jack the Stripper, the unidentified serial killer responsible for what came to
You got called what?
Jack the Stripper, the
Oh my god. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing this hard. I shouldn't have, but like, it's Jack the Ripper, not Jack the Stripper. Unless I'm missing a serial killer, infamous serial killer named Jack the Stripper. Holy shit. Oh my god, that was amazing. That's amazing. Like, he might be a serial killer called Jack the Stripper. I don't know, but I don't think that's the serial killer he's talking about. Holy crap.
Unidentified serial killer responsible for what came to be known as the London Nude Murders between 1964 and 1965. Number 6. Willie Bosa. William James
He looks like a wannabe gangster. I will admit, he looks like someone who would want to be a gangster.
Bosa Jr., also known as Willie Bosa, was an American convicted murderer whose numerous crimes committed while he was still a minor led to a change in New York state law. He has been in either prison or reformatories for all but 18 months since 1971 and has spent all but 100 days of his adult life in custody. He is currently serving a sentence of 82 years to life at Woodburn Correctional Facility. On March 19, 1978, at the age of only 15, Bosa shot and killed 3 different men over the course of about 1 month, all in armed robberies. Bosa was tried for the murders in New York City's family courts. As the trial was underway, Bosa surprised his own lawyer by pleading guilty to all 3 murders. He was sentenced to a maximum of 5 years in the Goshen Youth Facility. Although prosecutors tried to get a longer sentence, 5 years was the most they could get under the law of the time. The short length of Bosa's sentence caused a huge outcry amongst the public. Governor Carey called the state legislature into special session to pass the Juvenile Offender Act of 1978. Under this act, children as young as 13 years old could be tried in adult courts for crimes like murder and receive the same penalties as adults. New York was the first state to enact a law of this nature. All of the other states have since followed suit. When Bosa was interviewed, he explained that he committed the crimes because he knew he'd be released from prison by his 21st birthday regardless of what he did. He also explained that he knew his father was a killer and he admired him for it. Number 5. George Stinney.
The guy said his father was a killer and he admired him for it. When your family is your idol and they are evil as hell, holy crap. That's insane to think. Right? Like, your father is a killer, a serial killer. Or just a killer. He knows you killed someone. And you admire him for it.
It should be noted that in December 2014, Stinney was exonerated on the basis that his confession was co-inspired and that he was wrongfully convicted without a fair trial. However, for a very long time, he was still considered to be one of the youngest serial killers in history. On June 16, 1944, the United States set a record when they executed 14-year-old George Stinney, the youngest person to be legally executed in the U.S. during the 20th century. George was convicted of the murder of 11-year-old Betty June Benlicker and 8-year-old Mary Emma James, who were both found in a muddy hole. The girls suffered severe fractures to their own skulls inflicted.
So if I heard this correctly, this guy was proven innocent. But he was already executed, obviously. But he apparently has been proven innocent, if I heard correctly.
By a railroad spike found some distance from the town. George confessed to the crime and said that he wanted to have sex with Betty but ended up killing the girls. He was tried and sentenced to death in the electric chair. The case was not appealed because his family had no money to pay for it. However, in 2004, George Frierson, a local historian, started researching the case after reading a newspaper article about it, and his work gained the attention of South Carolina lawyers and others that contributed countless hours of research and review of historical documents. George Frierson stated in interviews that there has been a person that has been named as being the culprit, who is now deceased, and it was said by the family that there was a deathbed confession. Frierson said the rumored culprit came from a well-known prominent white family. A member or members of that family had served on the initial Conqueror's inquest jury, which had recommended that Stinney be prosecuted. On December 17, 2014, Stinney's conviction was vacated by Circuit Court Judge Carmen Mullen, who cited that as the youth had not received any kind of defense at his trial and his Sixth Amendment rights had been violated, the family of the victims had since expressed remorse for the original ruling. However, nothing can make up for the lost life of a young boy. Number 4. Jesse Palmero. One of the most notorious young killers of all times, Jesse Palmero had already made several attacks on other young boys by the age of 13. He led several young boys away from town to beat and stab them. All of the boys survived, although they were left with severe mental and emotional scars. However, there was never a trial on the case. After moving to Boston with his mother and sibling, Palmero's attacks on young boys continued, and he was finally arrested and put to trial by a juvenile court judge. Palmero was found guilty and sentenced to the Lyman School for Boys in Westborough, Massachusetts until he turned 18. He was released at the age of 14 for good behavior and paroled to his mother's home in February 1874. Roughly 2 years later, in April of the same year, the mutilated body of 4-year-old Horace Millen was found on the marsh of Dorchester Bay. Immediately, the police detectives sought out Palmero for the death of Millen, as well as a missing persons case involving 10-year-old Katie Curran, despite lacking evidence implementing him in either crime. During the police investigation, the body of Katie was found in the basement of Palmero's mother's dress shop, where her remains were hastily concealed in an ash heap. Palmero was pronounced guilty in December 1874. Palmero was sentenced to death by hanging. However, the governor refused to sign the death warrant, and Palmero's sentence was changed to life in prison. He began a life of solitary confinement at the age of 16, and remained there until he was 46, when he was allowed to interact with other life prisoners. In 1929, he was transferred to Bridgewater Hospital for the criminally insane, where he died in 1932. As Jesse was not seen to have any psychological damage, whether hereditary or attained, he was rumored and known to just be plain evil, having no reasoning behind the murders other than the desire to commit them. Number 3. Graham Young. Also known as the teacup poisoner, Graham Young was a 14-year-old boy with a fascination for chemistry. In 1961, he started to test poisons on his family, enough to make them violently ill. However, they dismissed it as
This guy was testing poisons, if I heard that correctly, on his family members. What the fuck?
nothing more than a stomach bug. In November 1961, the plot thickened when Winfried Young was served a cup of tea by her brother one morning. While on the train to work an hour later, she began to hallucinate, had to be helped out of the station, and was eventually taken to a hospital where doctors came to the conclusion that she had somehow been infected with the rare poison Atropia bendana. On Easter, April 21st, 1962, Young's stepmother, Molly, died from poisoning. Young's aunt, who knew of his fascination with chemistry and poisons, became suspicious. Young was arrested on May 23, 1962, and confessed to the attempted murders of his father, sister, and a close friend, but he could not be charged since his stepmother's body had been cremated before further examination. Young was detained under the Mental Health Act in Broadmoor Hospital for the mentally ill, after having been assessed by 2 psychiatrists prior to his trial and diagnosed as suffering from a personality disorder and schizophrenia. In the hospital, Young improved his knowledge of poisons and continued experiments using inmates and staff. It was rumored that his knowledge of poisons was such that he could even extract cyanide from the laurel bush leaves on the mental hospital grounds, and that he used cyanide to murder his fellow inmates. In June 1970, after nearly 8 years in Broadmoor, the prison psychiatrist wrote to the Home Secretary to recommend Young's early release, claiming that Young was no longer obsessed with poisons, violence, and mischief. Young was then released, only to continue on his poisonous path. He caused one of his co-workers to die and poisoned approximately...
I'm about to say, you can't tell someone he's not obsessed with poisons anymore. You don't know how his brain works. It's best to be safe and keep him there so he can't.
70 others. When arrested, police found a diary in which he logged dosage and whether or not he'd let that person live or die. Number 2. Mary Bell. On May 25th, 1968, the day before her 11th birthday, Mary Bell
10 years old. 10 years old when she took a life. Wow.
strangled 4-year-old Martin Brown. She was believed to have committed this crime alone. Between that time and a second killing, she and a friend, Norma Joyce, aged 13, broke into and vandalized a nursery in Scotswood, leaving notes that claimed responsibility for the killing, but the police dismissed the incident as a prank. On July 31st, 1968, the two girls took part in death again by strangulation of 3-year-old Brian Howe on wasteland in the same Scottswood area. Police reports concluded that Mary Bell had returned to his body to carve an M onto his stomach. Mary Bell also used a pair of scissors to cut off some of Howe's hair, scratch his leg, and mutilate his genitals. The two girls' stories contradicted so much that it never became entirely clear the details of what happened. Eventually, Brown's death was linked to Howe's killing, and in August 1968, the two girls were charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. She was given a diagnosis by court-appointed psychiatrist, classic symptoms of being a psychopath. Her symptoms seemed to be a result from sexual assault acted on her when she was younger. Her mother was a prostitute and would make her engage in sexual acts with clients. The judge on Mary's case described her as dangerous and said she posed a very grave risk to other children. Bell, aged 23, was released from Askham Grange Open Prison, having served 12 years, and was granted anonymity, allowing her to start a new life. 4 years later, she had a daughter whom did not know of her mother's past until Bell's location was discovered by reporters in 1998, and she and her mother had to leave the house with bed sheets over their heads. Bell's daughter's anonymity was originally protected until she reached the age of 18. However, in May 2003, Bell won a high court battle to have her own anonymity and that of her daughter extended for life. Any court order permanently protecting the identity of a convict in Britain is now known as a Mary Bell order. Number 1. Amar Singh. Described as India's youngest serial killer, Amar Singh was charged with the murder of 3 children, including his sister, all under the age of 1 year, when he was only 8. Singh was caught
8 years old. 8 years old. Kills 3 people. Born evil, gonna be evil, no matter what. That's what you have to be. You have to be born evil. You always plan to be evil. You're 8 years old to want to take life. Evil to the end.
in May 2007.
Evil from the beginning to the end.
When the neighbor's daughter went missing and everyone questioned him. The boy later led the villagers to the spot where he tried to hide the body and told them the gory tale of how he executed the killing. He allegedly took the infant to an open field and smashed her face with a rock until she stopped breathing. It later came to light that he also killed his 6-month-old sister a few months before, as well as a cousin a year earlier in the exact same way. Reportedly, his family knew of the first 2 murders, but they did not approach the police because they believed it was best to keep the matter within the family. A police
What? God, I'm fucking coughing and choking off that. I'm fucking shock of that one. Holy crap. Did you hear what they said? So he said that the family knew that he killed his sister and I'm pretty sure his cousin, but didn't mention it to police because they thought it was an issue that should have been kept in the family. Man, murder is not something that should be kept in the family. It's a family issue. It's not an issue that needs to be dealt with. No. Murder is something that police need to be involved with.
station officer in charge said the boy spoke little but smiled a lot. A psychoanalysis also added that the boy appears to be a sadist who derives pleasure from inflicting injuries. A former professor of psychology at Patna University, meanwhile, said the boy did not have a sense of right or wrong and may have a deep psychological disorder. When he was questioned at the police station, he reportedly just smiled a lot and asked for cookies. He was later charged with the murder on 3 accounts, and it was reported that officials requested he be held in a special facility as to prevent harming other children. It is, however, claimed that he's currently living in a children's home where he will remain until he's 18. There are no further details or proof for this claim, though. Got an idea?
Holy crap. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think of this reaction video in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all for the next one.